Selected Tales of a Dublin Doctor. This podcast is a series of tales written by my father, Patrick Bofin, and rediscovered in a file at the back of a press 30 years after his passing. From February 1989, the Gillie. There are people whom I regard as angling snobs, who consider the couple of weeks of the rise of the mayfly as Duffer's fortnight. This is less than fair. During that couple of weeks, there's an excitement on the lake, more fish, and the possibility of bigger than usual catches. When the mayfly hatch out, they rest on the surface of the water and are at first ignored. Then the small young fish begin to take them. They're like all young, enthusiastic and noisy in their big splash. Eventually, the larger, more cautious trout, satisfied until then to bottom grump, that is, to feed on the bottom of the lake, cannot resist the succulence of the large, freshly hatched mayfly. The splash of their take can be heard and identified. The fish are rising. The pulse quickens. A hot, brilliant day in early June. The sun almost vertical overhead. Some people might describe it as a beautiful day, but to my companion and me, with our Gillie in a boat in the middle of Lough Conn, it was a filthy day. The intense sun shone through the water so that the coloured stones on the bed of the lake could be picked out individually. We knew we were on a hopeless task. No self-respecting trout would move from the bottom of the lake in bright sunshine. But it was the day of the hatch, and we had travelled from Dublin for the annual mayfly pilgrimage to Lough Conn. Not a whisper of wind to aid our cast or dapping. We experimented with different flies, natural and artificial mayfly, black pennel, Connemara black, mallard and claret, all to no avail. I felt that even the mallard, grebe and common scoter in the nearby shallows would pause briefly in their mating to sneer at us foolish ones on a lake smooth as glass. It's regarded as unacceptable to troll during the mayfly rise, but our plight was desperate. We told Tig, the Gillie, to set the engine for trolling. We fixed artificial lures and paid out about 50 yards of line behind the boat, which travelled at dead slow speed around the lake. Trolling is not fishing. There's something rather dishonourable about it. It requires no skill. It's an admission that one has failed in the fair contest of deceiving the fish with the light, skillful cast. The petrol fumes from our outboard engine, gathering through lack of wind, were nauseating. Our faces and hands began to tingle with the beginning of sunburn. The monotonous throb of the engine was soporific. We almost dozed. Suddenly, there was a tug on my line, the familiar slap of a hooked fish. It was a real thump. This was no trout. It had to be a salmon, and of good size. The combination of non-productive hours, the heat, the throb and fumes of the engine had dulled my reflexes. I reacted with great excitement, but foolishly. Furiously I reeled in the line, but in my excitement much too fast. The reel could not adapt to the amount of line, with the result that the nylon became inextricably tangled, a bird's nest of line dreaded by anglers. It rendered the reel useless. I threw the rod and reel into the bottom of the boat and started to play the fish, holding the nylon in my fingers. He used every gambit, pulling away until the line was taut, then rushing forward, making the line so slack that one feared he had got away. He lay doggo on the bottom and then shot upwards, trying to get under the boat. For nearly 15 minutes he battled. By now the fingers of my right hand were torn and bloodied by the nylon line. Eventually he tired and allowed himself to be drawn near. Occasional darts to get under the boat were only symptoms of his exhaustion. I cried out, "Tig, the net, quick, the net." From behind me I heard the soft Mayo voice. "You won't believe this, sir, but I forgot the net." Without taking my eyes off the salmon or raising my voice, I said, "Tig, that fish joins us in this boat, or you join it in the lake." With a grunt, he leaned past me, slotted 2 fingers into the gills, and deftly swept the fish into the boat. It was a salmon of about 9 pounds. Only then did I become conscious of the ache in my shoulders and the pain and blood in my torn fingers. Tig was, arguably, the most incompetent, improvident, feckless gillie it had been my misfortune to have in a boat. But he was also the quickest to diffuse tension and to disarm one. From his perch near the engine, he smiled down at the salmon and the bilge and murmured, "Sir, it may not be the biggest fish you've ever caught, but it is certainly the prettiest. Will you look at the expression on that face?"